Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us today because we are tackling what is, without a doubt, one of the most explosive, controversial, and rapid shifts the software industry has ever seen. We're talking about the massive rise of vibe coding. If you've been anywhere near the tech space lately, you've definitely felt the shockwaves, right? It's fundamentally changing who gets to build software, how fast that software gets built, and honestly, what it even means to be a programmer today. The stakes are just insanely high here, whether you're a seasoned software architect or someone who has literally never touched a keyboard to code. So get comfortable and let's jump right into the source material. Okay, let's dive into this. It all started with this one single tweet in early 2025. Andrej Karpathy, who, as you probably know, is a highly respected former OpenAI researcher and just an absolute visionary in the machine learning space, coined this term vibe coding. He essentially threw down the gauntlet, telling developers to fully give into the vibes, embrace exponentials, and forget that the code even exists. Think about that for a second. He was telling everyone to stop sweating the actual syntax, the semicolons, the brackets, the nitty-gritty logic, and just vibe with AI agents. Let the AI write all that under-the-hood stuff. Well, this wasn't just some passing trend. It ignited a full-blown revolution that polarized the entire engineering community literally overnight. To truly wrap our heads around why this is such a massive deal, we just have to look at the sheer scale of the phenomenon. Within a year of that tweet, a staggering 41% of all code on Earth was AI generated. No way, right? And on top of that, an unbelievable 92% of US developers reported using AI coding tools every single day. Let's just pause and let that 92% sink in. We're talking about an adoption curve that is virtually unprecedented in human history, going from a tool that basically didn't exist to near universal daily adoption across a massive global industry in just a couple of years. That completely outpaces the adoption of the smartphone, the PC, even the internet itself. So we aren't talking about a niche hobbyist movement here. This is an absolute fundamental overhaul of how the digital world is built. Section 1, the vibe coding revolution. So the underlying premise of vibe coding is just incredibly seductive. You describe what you want in plain English, and boom, the AI builds it. That's it. It completely shatters that traditional, super steep barrier to entry. For example, our sources highlighted this truly amazing success story. A warehouse owner in West Virginia, a guy with absolutely zero technical background, managed to build custom, complex shipping and logistics software for his business in a single day. Now, let's put that into perspective, right? Logistics software isn't just a simple spreadsheet. We're talking about integrating routing algorithms, managing real-time inventory databases, creating complex user interfaces, and building secure multi-user authentication. Traditionally, that takes a team of senior developers months to build. But with vibe coding, a non-technical person built the whole shebang in 24 hours. This right here is the absolute peak of the vibe coding dream. It magically empowers anyone with an idea to become a high-level software creator. But of course, the honeymoon phase ends. Section 2, the vibe coding trap. Let me tell you a story that perfectly illustrates the extreme danger here once that initial magic wears off. So, a developer built this beautiful search autocomplete feature using AI. It took him 15 minutes, passed all the local tests on his computer, so he shipped it to production. Fast forward to Black Friday, the busiest shopping day of the entire year. At 3 a.m., the e-commerce site completely crashes. Why? Well, the AI had generated a fatal flaw known as a race condition. In simple terms, that's when a system tries to do two or more operations at the exact same time in this chaotic loop, which causes it to just freeze up or crash. And this specific query fired on literally every single keystroke. Worse yet, there was no caching, meaning the computer wasn't saving previous searches, so it had to do all the heavy lifting from scratch every single time. Oh, and no rate limiting either, which acts like a speed limit to stop a flood of incoming requests. So what happened? When 50,000 shoppers logged on, the database instantly melted down. The company bled $12,000 a minute, while the developer just stared at a screen full of code he didn't write and simply couldn't fix. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the developer's honest yet honestly terrifying response when confronted with the disaster. He simply stated, "It worked in testing. I didn't realize this would be a problem." And that gets to the very core of the vibe coding trap. Developers are acting as reviewers, just hitting approve and shipping code that they fundamentally do not understand. They see the green check marks, they assume the architecture is sound, and they are totally blind to the invisible technical debt building right beneath the surface. And just to clarify, if you're not familiar, Technical debt is essentially like taking out a high-interest loan on your software. Sure, you get the quick cash of a fast feature right now, but you are going to pay crushing exponential interest later when that poorly written code eventually breaks and takes the whole system down with it. And look, sometimes the AI's help is just laughably, exasperatingly bad. A sketch from Alberta Tech brilliantly highlights this absurdity. In their skit, a developer asks the AI to fix a broken method. The AI proudly declares it has completed the task by deleting the code entirely and replacing it with a comment that just says to do, fix. I mean, you have to laugh, right? In another documented instance, instead of returning converted image data like it was supposed to, the AI completely went off the rails and just hallucinated a picture of a can of sparkling water. It's funny, absolutely, but it proves a deadly serious point. You simply cannot blindly trust a large language model to just figure it out. So the crucial point is knowing exactly where to draw the line. Vibe coding is completely fine and even encouraged for low-stakes projects. If you're building personal tools, quick minimum viable projects to just test an idea, or you're doing some fun weekend experiments, vibe code away, have at it. But the very second you cross that line into handling real money and billing, processing sensitive private user data, or deploying client-facing projects where uptime actually matters, you have to stop vibe coding and start actually engineering. The risks of total systemic failure are just way too high. And when developers ignore those boundaries, the consequences are severe. Section 3. The security and skill crisis. Just look at these terrifying statistics from the industry fallout. 170 separate applications generated by the popular AI platform Lovable shipped with glaring vulnerabilities that exposed personal private user data directly to the open internet. Furthermore, AI-assisted tools leaked over 28.65 million hard-coded secrets onto public GitHub repositories in a single year. Now, a hard-coded secret is essentially leaving your digital master keys, like your database passwords or private API keys, written directly into the public text of your code for literally any hacker to find. Yikes. And the economic impact? Junior developer hiring has plummeted by a staggering 67%. Senior developers are now using AI to just blast through the tedious boilerplate code while handling the complex architecture themselves. This is leaving entry-level coders locked out of the market entirely simply because those entry-level tasks no longer exist. And for the juniors who do manage to somehow get their foot in the door, they're falling straight into what the industry is calling the new tutorial hell. Here is exactly how this dangerous loop works. You write code with AI, you hit an inevitable bug, you paste the error message into the chat window, the AI spits out a fix, you paste it back in, and you move on. The tragic flaw here? You never actually build a mental model of why the code broke. In a mental model, that's the invisible scaffolding in your mind. It's how you visualize the way data flows from the user to the server and back again. Without it, you are entirely lost. Developers are practicing prompt engineering instead of actual problem solving, and that guarantees severe skill atrophy. Sure, you get faster at typing out instructions, but you get fundamentally weaker as an engineer, which basically guarantees you won't know how to scale or maintain a complex code base later on. Fortunately, there is a cure for this mind virus. Section 4. Shift to Agentic Engineering. And this brilliantly illustrates the stark, uncompromising difference between the amateur approach and the mature professional approach. On one side, you have the prototypical vibe coder. They just describe loose, vague features, let the AI build this massive, messy prototype all at once, and then frantically try to work backwards to fix the inevitable bugs by just guessing and pasting error codes. Sound familiar? But on the other side, the agentic engineer operates completely differently. They clearly define the exact, specific outcomes first, they work forwards with a highly structured step-by-step plan, and they actively build a deep, rigorous mental model of the system they are constructing. So let's formally define this evolution. Agentic engineering means you are no longer just a passive prompter hoping the AI guesses correctly. You're a director. You are the product manager of your software. You are specifically directing highly capable AI agents to execute a clear, meticulously structured, forward-thinking plan. It is a massive mindset shift. You go from abdicating your responsibility to taking total, unyielding architectural control over the entire development lifecycle. Let's move to our next point and see how this builds into actionable steps. Section 5. Frameworks for AI Success. Now, before you even open your code editor, you really need to stop and think. Developer Tina Huang outlines these 4 crucial levels of thinking that act as a mandatory prerequisite to coding. First up is the logical level. What is the core app you're actually building? Like, is it a fitness tracker or a financial dashboard? Second, the analytical level. What's the main objective or success metric here? Are you tracking daily active users or total revenue generated? Third, the computational level. How do you fit that logic into the rigid constraints of the tech? Think about dealing with a mobile phone's limited battery life or a server's memory limits. And finally, the procedural level. What are the specific strategies to make the user experience absolutely excel, like adding daily gamification streaks, for example? Going through these 4 deliberate steps is exactly how you create a rock-solid product requirement document, or PRD, which ensures the AI knows exactly what to build before it writes a single line of code. Another game-changing framework heavily referenced in our sources relies on MCP, or Model Context Protocol servers. Look, when vibe coding fails, it's very often because the AI hallucinates fake, non-existent code libraries. It just mixes things up. MCP servers completely solve this by acting as a standardized bridge. Think of an MCP server like giving the AI a strict, open-book test with official company manuals, rather than forcing it to write code blindly from memory. It allows your AI agent to securely read real, up-to-date external documentation, connect to your live APIs, and integrate tightly with your existing developer tools. It permanently grounds the AI to reality. It gives it the exact factual context it needs to write accurate, secure code instead of just hallucinating. So if you want to survive and thrive in this rapidly changing new era, you absolutely must adopt these crucial non-negotiable habits. Write your product requirement documents thoroughly before you ever touch a code editor. Treat AI as a remarkably powerful tool to amplify your existing skills, not as a crutch to replace your critical thinking. Master Git and version control so you can always safely roll back your project when the AI inevitably deletes something important. And above all, review and test every single incremental step. We really need to stop trying to build complex systems in one giant paragraph-long prompt. Building in one giant prompt almost always leads to a massive cascade of hallucinations and invisible technical debt. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to ponder. As artificial intelligence continues to advance at a truly breakneck speed, you have a distinct choice to make right now. Will you hit a very hard, very fast career ceiling by relying on AI as a crutch, letting your foundational skills atrophy until you simply become replaceable by the next update? Or will you put in the difficult, deliberate work to master agentic engineering, turning these incredible tools into a massive force multiplier that makes you an absolutely unstoppable developer? The choice is entirely yours. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, and I will see you next time.